It's only fitting that Fantastic Four finally turns out fantastic on its 4th go-around this century, because Fantastic Four First Steps is really good. After the complete Superman binge I have been on this month, which, don't worry, video coming soon, it was nice to slip back into Marvel for a little bit, and it was just a good change of pace to just pop into a more self-contained story that didn't come with a laundry list of required viewing, which I'm sure is going to be dang near a rarity as we get closer and closer to Doomsday, and eventually the Marvel soft reboot that's pretty much guaranteed to happen at this point. Fantastic Four wastes no time, immediately throwing you into this world of 828, and all I can say is, I instantly fell in love. I've said it once, and I'll say it again, but I am a sucker for a movie with well-done stylization, and Fantastic Four gets this retro-futurism down to a T. That 2099 feel was heavily on display, from the flying classic cars to general high-tech being on dudes plucked straight from the 60s. I just wanted to get that out the way first, because those eye-catching, contrasting elemental period pieces will always immediately hook me in, like when I first saw the Fallout TV show. Now, thematically, they make it ever so apparent that this movie is about family, both by blood and those forged through trust, not only through the team, but through the greater community at which the Fantastic Four operates within. This was clearly the route that they were going to take, considering that this is Marvel's first family that we're talking about. But the thing is that it's not just an aspect of the story, but the core of the story, weaving itself into the primary conflict. It sets the tone of the environment, and a huge part of our protagonist's characterization is through the lens of how they contribute and care for this family. Like with Johnny, you see he consistently displays that everyday youthful and naive worldview. He goofs around and focuses on superficial and jovial things at times, leading him to be the butt of the joke, but the weight of family pushes him to take on a more calculated demeanor, as ever diametrically opposed it is to his core self. When he is needed, he is willing to take his time, flipping him from a man who was bored of a mission if it didn't involve him fighting someone, to appealing to the emotions of the Silver Surfer to solve the primary conflict. In the greatest scene of the movie, in my opinion, Ben from the beginning is positioned as this kind-hearted tether of the family, a man with skin like stone but the emotional touch of silk, as he is the anchor of this family, knowing them like the back of his hand so that he knows what is needed for them before they even have to speak. Now with Sue, it's rather interesting in that her love is most reflected in her anger, as in the aggression she lets out if her family is threatened. Like, in a sequence when they're being chased by the Silver Surfer and she is incapacitated, she doesn't tell Johnny to simply stop her or stall her. No, she blatantly tells him to kill her. Sue gets enraged when the idea of her family being abandoned is even slightly proposed, and that desire to protect her family leads her to, hands down, pulling off the greatest feats of power of all the four on the battlefield. Reed's love for his family is shown in sort of the antithesis manner to Johnny, in that while it's also reflected in how much he's willing to stray away from his internal nature, it's in the opposite way. Everyone knows that Reed Richards is a brilliant and obsessive mind that holds logistics at a high degree. It's a core piece of his nature, but sometimes the logical choice conflicts with what's best for his family. It shows how much inherent value he places on family if he's willing to deny what makes logical sense in order to look for that Hail Mary play, that long shot third option, because sacrificing his family is never truly an option. The primary conflict of this story is that Galactus is coming. The world-ending threat is on its way to Earth, and seemingly the only way to stop him is for Reed and Sue to give up their miracle baby, Franklin Richards, which I really enjoyed for the most part. I applaud any traditional hero or action film that is willing to throw a curveball and bring a more philosophical approach to the primary conflict, because Galactus isn't some force that'll physically be beaten, so this is more of a dispute centering on their own mental fortitude. And that's what I mean as far as those heavy family ties being interlaced amongst the story, as it proposes this idea of if their sworn kinship and those blood ties are worth the fate of the world. And it is such an interesting concept that the most frustrating part about it is that they didn't embrace the setup enough. Like, of course, it's ultimately an action film, so they aren't just going to simply sprinkle in them using their powers and call it a day, but it would have been nice if the final battle wasn't simply, let's throw everything we can to push Galactus into a portal and send him away so he can't find Earth again. Because all this really did was make Galactus look pretty weak, which I'll talk about a little later. If you really want to have that action sequence, having the four fighting Silver Surfer could have have been a lot better. For one, you have that built-in excuse for them to not instantly be dead, and that the Silver Surfer was already mentally conflicted by Johnny's emotional appeal from earlier on in the movie. You then have that doubled stakes in that the team is not only trying to protect their teleportation technology, but also having the looming threat of Galactus in the background as he is slowly approaching Earth. This is when the lengths at which the Fantastic Four are going to protect their family mirrors the Silver Surfer's own sacrifices, as she eventually goes out and stalls Galactus just enough for them to teleport the Earth to another part of the universe. But that's ultimately just my opinion. Now, the only major gripe that I have, one that I just talked about and I'm sure is going to start a little bit of discourse in the community, is that Galactus isn't as commanding of a force that I would have originally hoped. I know everyone is scaled down a bit for live action, but it kind of takes away from this cosmic threat that can't be beat when Sue alone is able to overpower Galactus for blocks at a time. Can't lie, he's looking like a straight Dormammu victim right now. It's like as soon as he touched down to Earth, he was still a force to be reckoned, don't get me wrong, but it was just a step down from what I was expecting. One thing that Fantastic Four does well though is that it embraces subtlety a lot more than your average MCU film. By the time the story starts, they are already 4 years into things, meaning that they are already established and any of that core characterization and familial dynamics are more subtle. Ben doesn't have to have a moment where he explicitly says that he feels like a monster because of the skin he lives in, but that longing for his past life is still implied. Johnny being viewed as a younger and glossed over voice of the team doesn't have to be explicitly told, but it's heavily implied. They even do away with the boisterous comedic lines in favor of more subtle comedic interactions amongst the family. That's one of the biggest benefits of focusing on established heroes, and that certain characterization just feels more natural, because one singular aspect is not dominating the central focus of these characters, but they are still there, and those subtle insecurities, flaws, and mental hardships just make the characters feel more complete, and not to the scale of being one note. The movie isn't just about the familial dynamic between the heroes, but the family dynamic between the heroes and the world as well. The Fantastic Four are set up as the commercially successful heroes for the people. The people of this world have this connection to them due to marketing, even if it teeters on parasocial levels, but the team embraces it as it's sort of their thing to make the world their extended family of sorts. They constantly give and give with the race's technological advancements, as well as them generally just saving the world. They are celebrities in a sense, branding that Four logo on shirts, coffee mugs, their suits, and every bit of merchandise in between to be the most recognized faces in the world. That connection and community is ultimately how they are truly able to beat Galactus, because originally there is a distrust when the public is informed that the Four would rather keep their kid than save the world. But the public's faith in their first family is able to overcome their nihilistic crisis as they all stand as a united front. Again, the Fantastic Four didn't overcome Galactus, the collective power of family did. The oddest thing though is that I wasn't particularly the biggest fan of the casting going in, and I don't know, check back with me in a month or two and I may have a different opinion again, but I am satisfied now because this is about as best as you can get as far as on-screen chemistry. And I feel that with the nature of their priorities, that group chemistry is 1000% more important than individual comic accurate representation. I really like this movie as it had a solid understanding of the theme it was trying to convey, and they made it branch throughout every inch of the story. Add on top of the incredible world and visuals that they throw the viewer into, and it culminates to a pretty good time.